Do you know, in our businesses, we tend to work in isolation. We view others in our industry sometimes as competitors to be feared and guarded against, not to give away that ounce of information. However, when we work individually and as individual companies, we have no power, we have no leverage, we have little or no say in our country's policies. I think it's fair to say, actually, in most national governments, and in fact in the general public, employee relocation is a dark art. It's a mystic thing that people know little about. And I'm sure all of you have gone to, I don't know, a dinner party or an event or something, and somebody says, "What do you do?" "Well, I'm in employee relocation." "Oh, what does that mean?" Governments are no different. Relocation industry doesn't yet register on their radar. But let me give you a couple of facts just about the UK, because I know about that a little more. Our UK Association has done a very straw poll. We think that there is a gross domestic product of £7 billion a year in employee relocation. 7 billion. That's, for those, in case there's some Americans here, it's 7 followed by 9 zeros. The income generated by the relocation of our clients is across sectors as diverse as visas and pensions, medical, health, real estate, removals, furniture, interim accommodation, you know the list. But interestingly, we believe in the UK that in indirect spending that's created by relocation, so that's on rents and salaries and school fees and all of those other ancillary costs, it's £21 billion in the UK. 21 billion. And we aren't really recognised by our government. Shocking, really, when you consider that the UK defence budget in 2021-22 was 45 billion. Put it into context. At the top level, we have, as we were seeing this morning with the panel that we're here, EURA and CRC and WERC and IAM and FEDE and CHPA, a group of people who are an umbrella organisation. They bring us all together under those specific sectors. And they're great umbrellas. But if you consider an umbrella for a moment, it's made up of lots of panels. And they were talking about work groups in terms of sustainability. But those panels that make up that umbrella actually should be our national associations, because they are formed to fill a gap that identifies collective voice for our specific countries. For good governance, national government policies, not even Euro policy, are built or influenced by one single organisation alone, but through associations. Associations coordinate a sector, represent the collective interests of all the members in that industry. They're advocates for that sector. And they offer insights and knowledge and experience to policymakers, but only if you're listened to. National associations exist to serve the needs of members and play a leading role in addressing issues that impact their sector. Earlier today, we were also listening to them setting standards in sustainability. But you have to set standards in your national environment as well, so that government understands the language that you speak. We're going to hear now from a panel of experts who represent their associations. They've all come together, and I'm very, very grateful to them to do so, because some of their associations have been around for a very long time that we will hear, and some are brand new. We want to hear from them in this conversation that we're going to have to understand what their associations are doing and how they're doing it and how many members are involved And for those of you who don't have an association, we'd like you to go away and think about how you might be able to get one and pull one together. So, this morning we have with us Anita Meyer, who represents ABRA in Belgium. Anita. Hannah Zentgraf, thank you. Hannah Zentgraf, who represents GARP in Germany. Jeremy Bateau from FAR and MG in France. And Jeremy very kindly has said he's going to tell you what that stands for because I can't pronounce it.
It stands for Fédération des acteurs de la relocation et de la mobilité géographique. Sorry about it.
Yeah, whatever you said. And Simon Johnson from the Association of Relocation Professionals. We would have had with us as well Sabine Berlacher from Sarah in Switzerland, but unfortunately she can't be with us at the conference today. But we've left her details up on the slide that you will see us rotating through, so that if you wish to contact her, her contact details are up there, and please do. So let me start asking the panel some questions and get some insights. And so good morning, Anita. Thank you for coming along. Could you tell us a little about ABRA and what it does and who for?
Okay. 1 year after Euro saw the light, in 1999, a few relocation companies in Belgium were being bullied by the real estate people, and they threatened to shut down the relocation industry as a whole because they thought it was a threat. They thought we were going to rent houses for them behind their back, and we were a challenge to them. So we thought, probably time to get together, because as you said earlier, we were all competitors and playing in our own field. So we got together and thought, what can we do to be a bit stronger? Why not an association? And in 2001, we got a couple of heads looking in the same direction, and we created the Association of Belgian Relocation Agents, ABRA. But that's not only what it means, it also means abracadabra, what we do on an everyday basis.
This is way before Harry Potter time. Yeah.
Indeed, yeah, he wasn't born yet. The association today is, after 20 years odd, well organized. We have a secretary. Fiona, are you here? No, she didn't survive the party yesterday. And we have 100 members today.
Okay.
Mind you, there's only 16 relocation companies, and there's not more than that in Belgium, I think. And we have 18 freelance members, because we want to represent them as well. They're not employees of any of our companies, but they're out there with the expats every day. And all the others are affiliates, like insurance companies, banks, cultural trainers, all the companies and people, sometimes also one-man stands that are interested in expats.
Okay.
So that's where we stand today with ABRA after 20 years of talking together, meeting together, and voila, that's
fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much. Hannah, I think it's fair to say I think you're the newest association, so tell us a little about GARP and what it stands for.
So with GARP, we actually, I would say we're not only competitors, as you said earlier. So yes, we are, of course, but we're friends. And we do believe, or we founded ourselves actually, due to we wanted to trust each other more and be stronger for immigrations, for house hunting problems, for everything, what everybody's facing it everywhere, I would say. We've just founded ourselves last year. And in Germany, you have to do official things, which is unfortunately still not approved. We hope that it would be. We just launched our homepage, which I heard earlier is not working at the moment. We're trying to figure out. But so we are very relatively new. We have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of things we want to do together. Klaus is here, Oliver is here, Sophie in the back is there as well. So we are just having a good time together and brainstorming on where we want to go, and of course also wanting to advertise somehow to get more Germans actually participating, because it's just 7 of us at the moment, because that's the minimum of founding members you have to have in Germany for an association.
Okay.
But
Do you have to register your association?
to have a bank account, yes.
Right, okay. And have directors accordingly for the finance? Yeah,
Exactly,
sure. No, I
correct.
understand.
So it's, you have all these official stuff you have to
And
fulfill.
is there an association in Germany at the moment already?
No, not
So this is
officially
the
as far
first
as I
one
know. Yeah.
that you're aware of?
Exactly. So we had kind of unofficial associations in Germany, yes, and we always talk, but it's more what we're trying to change now is really like that trust part, I would say.
Okay. So what was the motivation in setting up this association? So,
Helping each other,
okay.
actually. So helping each other, standing as powerful together for the immigrational part, to be able to go to the government and say, okay, listen, stand up, something is wrong, the waiting times for appointments is too long. Also sharing basically thoughts on how to get counselors somewhere to just share and help.
And what was the catalyst? I mean, the 7 founding members, who was there one single person that said, oh, let's all meet up, or was it an association, a meeting like this, a session that just made everybody go, let's just talk and do this?
I would say it was everybody together. I think so, wasn't it? Was there a catalyst? I think we just all wanted to go together. Sophie definitely said, okay, we have to change something, because we met before in Germany on a loose base always.
Okay.
So we try to just be a bit more formal, like we Germans like to be.
Sure. No, I understand that. Well, thank you very much, Hannah. That's great. So, Jeremy, the question for you as well now, why this long acronym, which I'm not going to repeat. What happened there, and how did that get established? And
Well, the history of syndicates, plural, in France, because obviously we have to have several, it very much echoes Anita's story with Belgium. A common enemy, real estate agents, looking at us in the wrong way, spurred the creation of SNPRM, le Syndicat National des Professionnels de la Relocation et de la Mobilité.
everybody got that?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Way back, in a time where I was not part of the industry, and that was the first syndicate ever created in France, and from it spurred FARI-MG, syndicate we're part of right now. So that's where we're at right now with 2 syndicates. We won the fight against the real estate agents. We're not real estate agents, because that was the way the fight was posed back in the day. And we're in a kind of a different situation as you guys. Anna, perhaps you'll get your second syndicate one day, with a couple of syndicates in France, representing really most of the thousands of agents, local consultants, small companies, bigger companies in France, and that's how we got created. But currently we're facing some quite big challenges, actually. So I'm glad that we have them, because I get to talk here about those. Because this is France, we do have a subsidy that covers relocation expenses, and we just heard a month back from the state-managed entity that delivers the subsidy that it will stop on June 30th. So most of the companies in France being structured around at least part of that subsidy coming into their revenue stream. This is going to be a big challenge to face.
So the name of this subsidy, I mean, I know you said it.
Mobilipass is the name of the subsidy.
And just a quick part of that history for these people, for people who don't know how that works. What's the story about Mobilitas?
So the story goes way back to the end of the Second World War, where every French employer was tasked, required by the French government to verse 1% of their whole salary mass to, go forward to the rebuilding of the country and social housing. Obviously, after the 50s and 60s, well, how many more social housing can you build? And in the late 90s, the subsidy was put in place because we faced in France a very high unemployment rate compared to our neighbors. And that subsidy was, well, put together towards facilitating mobility, internal mobility within France, enabling people to, well, who lived in the north of the country to go into the south, because that's where their skills were demanded. That really structured the French mobility industry. That spurred the creation of many, many companies, that spurred also the creation of many single entity players, and those rely heavily on that subsidy.
Okay.
Obviously, that's where we're at right now.
So
and
a
it's been-
benefit and a risk.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly, exactly.
So in terms of the association, are you working with government to try and stop that subsidy being removed? What are you doing as an association?
Yeah. So again, a common enemy, and really putting the air quotes this time, has brought us together. So we're working together. The two associations are coming back together, which is something I've been wishing for quite some time. And we are actually trying to work with the government. We were tasked, I was part of the writers of a letter to the French president. So I said, Cher Emmanuel, no, dear Mr. President. And yeah, we actually published an open letter to the president no later than 10 days ago. Well, putting the light on that issue, and trying to make people understand that we are part of a historical drop in unemployment in France that we've been experiencing for the past 5 years. And now, well, the faucet is turning off, so what's up with that?
Sure.
So we'll see how that goes, but at least we got some attention, so that's good. And hopefully that will also help us bringing the two associations back together, because that's...
I'd like to explore a bit later on the government connections, because I think that's part of really the National Association piece that all of us want to try and understand more. And your experience, or the French government's experience of working with relocation, is something I've not heard of anywhere else. But if you're in the audience and you know of anything different, let me know. Let me come to Simon. I believe the ARP is probably the oldest of the associations, not least of which that it was founded by Tad. So, Simon, tell us about the ARP. You were the chair for the last 3 years during the COVID.
Correct, yes. So you're absolutely correct. It goes back to 1986. So Tad was originally involved in it, but he didn't technically start it. So I had to check with Tad on this to make sure I got all my dating right. And actually, it was in 1988 that he then took over the ARP, and then it became sort of the nucleus, if you like, to what we have today.
Right.
And you could argue was maybe part of the journey towards Europe. So at the moment, the ARP has just over 100 different members, and they're across all the disciplines. It really doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're involved in the relocation journey. So the DSPs are in there, removals in there, language training companies in there, everybody's in there and hugely welcome. Now, as far as why we exist, I would personally boil this down to sort of two key issues, and I'll then expand onto a third. And that's really firstly around training. So there was a lot of requirement within the UK for particular training that wasn't really being identified by any other means. So if I can bring this up to date, and this is where some of the people in this room have been so strong on this, things like anti-money laundering training, you've got the legal training in regard to renter contracts. These are complex minefields which the government throws out there and then gives absolutely no advice to whatsoever at how you're supposed to actually manage it. So that was, I think, the sort of key issue. The second bit was really around collaboration. It's just amazing to bring everybody together and actually share and address common problems. So on the back of that, we have two major events we have every year. One is the Christmas party, which I would challenge is probably the best Christmas party you can probably go to. It is an event and a half, so if you ever want to come to the UK, come to our Christmas party. And that sounds all quite light-hearted, but you have 150 plus people there, and it's just an amazing network occasion. And the other one is we have an award ceremony, which is usually around early summer. And again, I think this really matters. The ARP Awards are really focused on companies who not only are sort of international like ourselves, but companies who are focused on into UK or within UK. So this gives a vehicle for the smaller businesses, like the property finder companies, who don't get a chance to have that high visibility, to put themselves forward for the awards and get that high profile as a result. So that's sort of the backbone of it. I think what's really happened in the last, I suppose, 3-4 years is recognizing that, as you alluded to earlier, the government has no idea we exist. And if you permit me, there are just these two examples I'd like to explore. Firstly is, there is similar to yourself, there is a tax regime that was introduced about 30 years ago, where the first £8,000 of somebody's tax relief can be exempt from tax. And that sounds lovely. And 30 years ago, £8,000 made perfect sense. Now, move on 30 years, it's nowhere. So we've got to get the government to recognise that it's in their interest to revisit that and why it's in their interest. The other one, actually, was really interesting, what you're talking about, is the fact that the government is recognising that the real estate agents in the UK are perhaps not as governed as well as they could be. So there is a new wave of legislation coming in. And here's the problem. The government doesn't see any difference between a real estate agent and a relocation company. So if we do not get our profile increased, as a government recognise who we are and what we stand for, we are seeing problems coming down the road. So we've been putting a lot of energy into regard to lobbying and building up that profile. So we're right at the foothills of this, but we've got some exciting things going on.
Fascinating, isn't it? Because when we started this conversation, Anita, that's your motivation was actually we don't want to be lumped in with real estate agents or estate agents in any way whatsoever. And has that problem actually gone away now in Belgium? And are you seen separately? And the government recognise you separately as a relocation industry?
That last question, no way. The government doesn't understand what relocation is all about until a big company invests and sets up their plant and want to bring in expats, and then all of a sudden there's a panic and they throw money at them by telling them not to pay taxes, and that's therefore come to Belgium. But then the next step is that the people need like a work permit. We now call it a single permit, but that's a long story. And that is very complex, and that can take like 6 months. And a big issue that we have at the moment is driving licenses. As soon as you're registered and officially live in Belgium, i.e. you went to a town hall and you said, hi, I'm here, your foreign driving license is no longer valid. You have to have a Belgian one. Apparently, from what I hear, that's the same in most countries. You have to have a local driving license. Okay. But that, again, takes a while, and you can only start the procedure once you have your residence permit. So from that day, from the day you have your residence permit, until 2 months later, when you get your driving license, you're not allowed to drive. Tell that to a CEO or to the driver or whatever. Sure. So it's very unpractical, and we have a long way to go to talk to the government and to expose these problems. But again, there's only 16 real full-blown relocation companies. So it's a hard struggle. And then, of course, work, everything that has to do with work and work permits is regional. So it's different in the north from the south and different in Brussels. So we have to talk to 3 different ministers of employment. It's huge. It's a huge job. We're not there yet.
Interesting. Okay. Hannah, I'm going to come back to you. Have you identified within GARP and with your colleagues in GARP some of the issues you want to approach government, and have you already got a roadmap for that? Or is it just at the moment, hang on, we're just trying to get the website sorted out and you know, and go from there? Where are you in this?
Basically, we started thinking about it, of course. I mean, other than that, we would not have founded the association. We have not like a detailed roadmap in place yet. Too early for that. Yes, we're figuring out the starts, but we definitely want to be stronger, especially on the governmental side. So we are having issues also, same as Anita, different in the different regions. But we are facing major problems everywhere about Germany, and it's going through press, for example, with appointments with the foreign department. So we have waiting times between 6 and 12 months. People not being able to travel, who are business travelers, not getting any temporary permits anymore. So that is one thing. Second, of course, also, as I said earlier, with the councillors. So just how do we find staff better? I mean, I think in everywhere or in most of the countries I heard, most of the staff just vanished away during Corona. So what to do now? How are we going to train them? Can we help each other? So yes, we do have a couple of things on our to-do list, but it's not in words, and we try to get everything wrapped up kind of also with hopefully sooner than later coming new members, just to be able, because we want to do it together. We do not want to define what everybody's doing, but we try to kind of define everything together with all of the people coming, hopefully.
So, Jeremy, I'm going to ask you, I'm going back to the government piece in particular, because I'm very interested to know how you actually get in touch with government. I think when I ask Simon this question in a minute, you'll see him wince. So from your perspective, you know, who are you engaging with within government? And you said the open letter, that ministers or civil servants?
Yeah, we do have contacts, and we actually come together as two syndicates to the government-managed entity that provides the subsidy. So we do have very regular meetings. It's been the case for the past couple of years and a half, because the problem was mounting. The amount of money dedicated to that subsidy was clearly not enough, and well, now we're on the brink of the precipice. So we can go so far with that kind of discussion, but obviously that's not enough. At least that's what we feel as syndicates.
Do government sense the urgency of keeping mobility, relocation absolutely essential up there, or are they losing interest because perhaps other European countries aren't doing it?
I don't think they sense it.
You don't? Okay.
You know, we're coming off the back end of quite a very French and typical social movement around the raising of the retirement age. So obviously, this is something that's dwarfed by such an issue that put many million French people on the streets demonstrating. So obviously, we're just, well, shouting inside a tornado. So that's why we decided to have a more direct approach, and really we went out with well, publishing the letter on Twitter, LinkedIn. We have the chance to have a president that's very well connected, and that usually doesn't let things go or slide or put them under the rug. So for the moment, it's not been responded, but it's been 10 days, so we'll see where we go. And beyond that, I think I've been very inspired by what was done by the ARP during the COVID period with the lobbying that was done through MPs.
Yeah.
And also, I don't want to...
No, I'm sure Simon will talk about it.
Encroach on your question, but Simon, how did this go?
Yeah, Simon, tell us about what the ARP have been doing.
Okay, well, this is a long, slow journey. Basically, anything to do with UK government does not happen quickly, as we have now transpired. But let me sort of sum it up. The big difference was a while ago, we got to work with an ex-MP who is a fabulous guy. He's a lobbyist. He's an expat himself. He's traveled around the world, so he understood the industry. So we then had to spend a lot of time with him trying to explain exactly what we're trying to do, what the issues are. But this has been a catalyst to the change, but it has taken time. So the end result now, let's just warp it up to where we are, because it's quite an exciting moment if we can keep this going. So we have now the ex-MP has now brought in a sitting MP to actually become the head of the APPG, which is the all-party parliamentary group. So if you want to get government to recognise us, or engage with us and discuss with us, or questions to be raised, you need an APPG, which is not the easiest thing to do. But we've now got one. So we now have a sitting MP who is now working with his team to try and get some of the key questions we have raised. Now, the exciting thing is we have a meeting coming up fairly shortly. We've just got to this catalyst. So our first APPG official meeting will be taking place very soon, but that will be taking place in the House of Parliament in Westminster, which again is an amazing opportunity. So for the first time, our voice, our recognition is being brought in. But we had a few sort of hiccups along the way, because we thought one of the best ways to do this was to actually tackle the Mayor of London. So that's not an easy task, to try and get a meeting with Sadiq Khan, but we've got one. So we had a chance to express to him how amazing it is, the relocation industry. And just to put the perspective, the numbers you gave for the UK are correct. But let's be honest, South East England and London is the beneficiary of this. So we're going in there and actually saying that this is an industry worth billions, billions to the London economy. And he went, oh, that's fascinating, and then kind of moved on. So you have to sort of find hooks to really get them back in again. So we're hoping to have further meetings with other mayors around the country. We've got this APB taking place very shortly. We now have the ability, if that goes well, which is looking very promising, to get questions raised to government. We can then start raising some of these issues we talked about the 8,000, and also about the legislation for estate agents and letting agents. And hopefully, there is a possibility we can get our questions raised in the House of Commons. So I don't know if anybody knows how the UK system works on politics, but really what you want is somebody in the House to stand up to ask the Prime Minister or a official body a key question. If we can get to that stage, you're now on the radar. So once we get to that position, and this is where I don't want to get into the whole Brexit thing, whether you think it's good or bad, the opportunity for us on the back of this is very good. What do I mean by this? Well, the government is going off and trying to do trade agreements with the world at the moment. Well, they're doing this and going, isn't this amazing? The Britain is a fantastic place to do business. You should come on over with your money. And we go, yes, what about the people? You might want to think about them. So all that talent that's coming around the world coming to the UK, you need us there. So we're trying to see if we can get the government to recognise that as you're doing these envoys and events around the world to promote the UK and to try and win more business and build on these trade agreements, this industry is right at the heart of it. And that is our ambition. So we're, as I said, we're at the foothills of it, but it's beginning to come together.
It is interesting that we have a tax allowance called research and development in the UK. And they will give you a good tax allowance if you're a corporate based on machinery or software, but not people. So who do they think is actually going to work and make these things and make them run and operate and increase that income? And of course, part of what the ARP are trying to do is get government to go, listen, why don't you include relocation of talent in that and make it work? So yeah, that was the other part of it. Well, and I know I'm conscious of time flying by with everybody, but one of the things I'd like to know is for everybody here is, how does your association run? Because it's usually a few volunteers that are running these things. Anita, you mentioned Fiona was here. She's the executive of the organisation and does the work behind the scenes that the board says. How does it structured?
She's a lot.
She's all of it. Okay.
She's a lot. She organizes the events. We have every quarter a member meeting. We're being invited by schools or by bigger entities, a bank sometimes. So she organizes all that. She invites the people. She welcomes the people. She makes the badges. She writes an e-newsletter regularly. She organizes town halls.
Right.
Something that we started in COVID times. So those are Zoom meetings on urgent issues, a change of law on immigration or something. What have I forgotten, Fiona? What else do you do?
Well, Anita, let me ask you.
The members? Yeah,
New
right.
members, yes. When you're doing your newsletters, do you just focus on Belgium, or do you use information from other associations in Europe that you might work with?
We do work a lot with Jura.
Right.
Jura helped us start up
Okay.
way back when. We use their code of conduct to select new members. So we have a lot of help with Jura. And if we need information, we knock on their door as well.
Right.
And we exchange information as well. I've seen the president of ABRA in the room as well, Eric Leach. But apart from Fiona, we're all volunteers.
You're all volunteers.
And we have a board, I think, of 8 people at the moment.
Okay.
The affiliates are in the board. The full members are in the board. And we.
Is it onerous for people? I mean, in terms of your time, is it a real deflection from running the business, or is it something that you can actually just fit in and it works?
I would say as a board member, you dedicate on average a full day a month,
Okay.
probably.
So
I've never measured it, but
Right.
that's how it feels.
So your company is quite happy for you to do that because they see a
Yes.
benefit for the knowledge and experience that you're gaining.
We learn a lot from each other.
Sure.
Yeah, we share information. Yeah.
Okay. And for you, Jeremy, I mean, how's that set up?
Pretty much the same way.
Okay.
It's well, company owners taking out of their free time as our board to run the association. Obviously, when there is a time of need like we just had, everybody came together, and that's really a great feeling. That's probably the best feeling you can get out of these kinds of association is working together in the same directions, thanks to our common enemies. And really, yeah, it's in terms of time commitment, it's pretty much as Anita has put it out. It's also as much as you're willing to put in, and that's how much you'll get out of it. So hopefully we'll get out of it something good for the whole of our industry. I know that the S&P has a slightly different model with a paid coordinator that oversees everything.
Yeah.
So there are different models out there, and yeah, that's how we run things currently, at least.
Absolutely. Anna, I'm guessing the GARP at this stage is very much all the volunteers and the guys that you've been observing as we've been going through this session.
Yes,
all
absolutely.
working together and giving that time. But from your perspective of just starting out and talking to anybody who's thinking, oh, we really need an association in our country, is it really onerous, or is it something that you can do relatively easily?
I think we are lucky enough to have people in the group who are stronger in tasks, which I'm an absolute idiot. So IT is just not mine, and talking about how web pages are supposed to look like is killing a couple of us. But we're lucky enough, as I said, that we have people in the group already who are good in this stuff and who took over that. I think it's, for me, I can just say for me personal, it gives me a lot. Yes, it takes time, but it's not like a tremendous amount of time. It's not like impossible to manage somewhere in my day or in my evening sometimes as well. But yes, there will more to come, definitely, especially at the stage where we are, because we, of course, have to try to make all these nice things and newsletters and stuff like that. But it's, I think we're kind of subdividing pretty good. And for me, as I said, what I get most of it at this stage is actually the fun of doing something new, of realizing that we can go somewhere together, that we can manage together, and that actually, as I said at the very start, friends I had before, they are even closer friends now, and that's absolutely wonderful for me.
Fantastic. And that trust has been
Yeah,
built
trust
already.
is, oh yeah, but I have to say we had that trust before
Which
that,
is-
but
yeah.
it is building up. So
Okay.
we are so open. I would have never ever thought that in competition, in the end, that you could be that open and have these honest
Absolutely.
discussions.
So Simon, very quickly, the ARP model and how that operates.
Okay, so it's broken into two groups. You have the executive committee, if you like, and we're very lucky, we're blessed. We have a TAD, which is pretty handy. We also have a Brownie, which is very handy, and we also have a Gordon, which is even more handy at times. So we have those, and they're the backbone of the executive team. And then we have a board which consists of the chair and 5 other members across the different disciplines of the group, and take into account some geography issues as well, to make sure we have representation further north of the country. So that's basically how it works. So I've been the chair up to recently. I've actually just handed over to you, haven't I? Which is
Thank you
very,
for
very
that.
recently.
Yeah.
So the end result is that we also have a slight change on the last changeover. So because the lobbying is something I got to be honest, I'm very passionate about, and I think it's a key. We've got myself and one other party, Mima, who's joining the board, but as a lobbying support to give guidance and advice back to the board as best we can.
Yeah, she's co-opted onto the board,
Correct.
as you are.
Yes.
To make sure that we don't lose, we have that continuity of information and experience going through.
Yeah, they actually keep it going. So the end result, that's how it works. It does take up quite a lot of time in that regard. However, this is time that's vital. I mean, if we get this right, it will transform the way that the UK relocation industry works. And what bigger task is that?
Okay. I'm going to ask you if there are any questions in the audience. I know sometimes with a topic like this, there aren't necessarily anybody that's got any questions, but you're welcome to put them out there to the panel if you have got anything you would like to ask. And Klaus, thank you. So there'll be a microphone. Yeah, Bryony, thank you.
I would be interested to hear how you gather the numbers. What
Okay.
revenue all the mobility services bring
For the
country.
survey that you talk about, where we found out that it was approximately 7 billion.
So
and
you
all
did
that.
it in a survey to all the members, or how did you do it?
Yeah, so Tad, well, thank you, Tad. Let Tad answer it. So can you give him a microphone, please? Thank you.
In short, Klaus, I did it. Yes, it was a combination of different surveys to different groups, and I just put all the figures together. And I thought to myself, to begin with, I thought, well, if we were just looking at the relocation industry, we might be 7 million. But then you have to look at what all these people bring. So you're moving all these top executives who earn hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, and they're renting properties in London at thousands of pounds a month, and they're shopping, and then there's the company that's bringing them and the amount of money it's bringing into the economy and everything else. So basically it's everything associated with relocation. And I came to 7 billion. And then I went to the ASAP lunch, which is the Association of Service Apartment Providers, and they were talking about something else, and I suddenly realized that my 7 billion probably was at least 1 zero short, and it should be more like 70 billion. But if you then take that, whether it's 7 billion or 70 billion, and multiply it around the world, you realize very, very quickly that this association, that global mobility that has little recognition is incredibly significant to the economies of the world. So we're literally talking, forget billions, trillions. So that's how, but we actually want to go to an organization to look at those figures again, and an organization that's recognized by the government to be able to then go to the government and say, well, Tad said 7 billion, but actually it's, I don't know, 65 billion. We want to actually have it properly analysed, so we've got something we can use. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely, thank you. And the other thing that we did that's important to know really, Klaus, is that by all of us in the industry handing our information to Tad, it was done in confidentiality. And that was the secret, really, was trying to do. It was finding that independent, impartial and confidential centre to be able to hand it to. And yeah, Tad's never given me the spreadsheet that I've asked him for half a dozen times. But, well, anyway. Adrian, a little bribe. I'll buy those shoes off you, Tad. Okay. Are there any other questions in the audience? Anybody else want to ask? Yes, the lady over here. Thank you, Bryony.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm surprised to see that there is no representation from the Netherlands on this board, because I'm a member of the board of the ARPN in the Netherlands. So I think that we should do our homework a little bit better and be on the stage next year for Europe. We too have an association of relocation professionals in the Netherlands, and we too are very much invested towards our members. We have 20 members certified by us. Before you enter our association, you have to be approved. We set standards, we set KPIs as well. We also involve professionals out of the industry. We have the immigration office coming. We have, well, municipalities, everybody. So we too are making a fist to these organizations to show them how important it is that we as associations and as an industry are linked together. And so I'm very much looking forward to be on the panel next year and explaining to all of you what we do in the Netherlands.
Thank you very much. Okay, with pleasure. And I'm sure there are other associations that would have been delighted to have been up here as well. In my defence, I will tell you that I know these guys, and I'm afraid I apologise, but I don't know you. So next time, would love to have you up here, and anybody else from any other association who looks to and wants to set one up. and needs that advice or anything along those lines, this panel and this lady here, we will gladly give you advice on how to set up an association, how to go through it, and getting the members. And I think this is a story that's just beginning. Because actually, as associations, if you remember that terrible umbrella analogy that I gave you about the panels keeping the umbrella propped up, what we need is you and information being passed through the associations to the Euros and the WERCs and everybody else, so that there is a local voice on a regional and global level, because there are different issues in every single country. And it's clear to me, I guess, that as our relocation industry matures, and it is a relatively young one in the world as it stands at the moment, we have to adapt and change too, and we will do. And we need to make sure our voice is heard. You know, accountants are listened to, and lawyers are listened to, construction industry is listened to. Well, actually, we need the relocation industry listened to as well in every single country, and regionally and globally. But it can't just be a few willing volunteers like these guys here. Other people have to contribute too. And not everybody can afford the executive behind the scenes who's doing all the work, and then just having a board come in and direct them. And so I put an appeal out to anybody who's here: support your national association. Get out there, make sure that you're members of it, join in and follow their standards as well. But the one common theme that I hope has run through this is the one of trust. It's collaboration all the way through, it's cooperation, and combining the forces in a true sense of synergy to make sure that we are greater than the sum of the parts. I would also like to say that we need the RMCs and the bigger players to put their hands in their pockets and support their associations too. If they don't, now I know Anita's company does, because she's here and she's supporting and doing the work with ABRA. But there are others that I frankly, especially on the UK lobbying, we could really do with some more income, because these guys, it's a very expensive operation. Right, I'm conscious of time. On behalf of Euro, I'd just like to thank this lovely panel, amazing panel. Thank you so much for coming along and sharing your stories on behalf of your associations. And I just want to leave you with this one thought. Success happens when good people with good intentions cooperate and work together over a shared interest. And that's what our association should be. Thank you, and enjoy your lunch.